The wind swept across the Montana plains like an old song, whispering through the cottonwoods that lined the Carter Ranch. Evening light painted the sky in amber and rose, the kind of glow that made even a lonely man pause and thank the Lord for another day. Caleb Carter had lived alone on this land for 5 years. He'd buried a father, lost a herd to drought, and carried a quiet grief that made him speak more to his horse than to folks in town. But he was steady, kind, and when neighbors needed help mending fences or breaking a colt, he always showed up. That afternoon, as Caleb hauled a sack of grain toward the barn, he heard something faint, a cry, thin and desperate, carried by the wind. He stopped, listening. It wasn't the cry of an animal. It was a baby. He dropped the grain and ran toward the sound. Near the wagon trail that led from town, he found a woman kneeling in the dirt beside a toppled cart. Her dress was torn, face streaked with dust and tears. In her arms, a baby wailed, its tiny fists clenched against the chill. The woman looked up as Caleb approached, fear flickering in her eyes. "Ma'am," he said softly, hands raised in peace. "You hurt. Need help." Her voice trembled. The wheel gave out. "I tried to walk. The baby, he's hungry." Caleb's heart twisted. "You're safe now." He crouched beside her, careful not to startle. "Name's Caleb Carter. I got a warm house just a mile back. Let me get you both there." She hesitated, clutching the child closer. "Please. I'm not one of the good ones. Folks in town wouldn't. They wouldn't want me around." Caleb looked straight into her frightened eyes. "Ma'am, right now I just see someone who needs help." The storm rolled in before they reached the ranch, but by then the fire was already roaring in his hearth. Caleb wrapped the baby in a wool blanket and handed the woman a cup of warm broth. She drank with shaking hands. "I'm Lila," she said quietly. "Lila Mayfield." He nodded. "You and the little one'll stay here till you're strong again." She opened her mouth to protest, but exhaustion pulled her back into silence. The baby fussed softly, and Caleb, awkward but tender, lifted the child and began to rock him. Lila watched, surprise softening her expression. "You've done that before," she murmured. "Helped my sister with her twins," he said. "They're grown now. Guess I remembered how." Something in his calm presence loosened the fear that had been gripping her for months. Over the next days, the ranch became a quiet refuge. Lila washed dishes by the window while Caleb mended tack in the yard. When the baby, Daniel, cried, Caleb was often the first to pick him up, walking slow circles until the fussing faded. Sometimes Lila caught herself smiling, a thing she hadn't done since before her husband left her with debts and shame. One evening after supper, she stood by the stove humming a soft tune. Caleb leaned against the doorway, listening. "That's a pretty song," he said. "It was my mama's. She used to sing it when things felt heavy." He nodded. "Seems it still works." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full of something gentle, like the hush after rain. As weeks passed, spring warmed the land. Lila helped in the garden, her sleeves rolled, cheeks flushed. The baby cooed in a basket nearby while Caleb worked the field. They spoke little but understood much. Two wounded souls learning that peace sometimes comes in small, steady moments. One night, lightning flickered on the horizon. The baby stirred, whimpering. Lila rose, her breath catching. "He's always afraid of thunder," she whispered. Caleb took the child carefully, holding him close. "Hush now, little fella," he said, rocking with the rhythm of the rain. The baby's cries slowed, then faded. Lila stood watching, tears shining in the firelight. "You don't have to do that," she said, voice trembling. "He's my burden." Caleb looked up. "Ain't a burden to comfort a child." Her lips parted, and for the first time she whispered the truth that haunted her. "I'm not whole, Mr. Carter. Broken people shouldn't depend on others." He met her gaze steadily. Maybe broken folks just see the world clearer. Maybe they're the ones who know how to love right. Something inside her cracked, not from pain but from release. By summer, gossip from town had started to drift their way. "The widow and the rancher," people whispered. Lila feared it would drive him off. But when she mentioned it, Caleb just shrugged. Let him talk. They don't know what it's like to rebuild a life one sunrise at a time. A few evenings later, he handed her a small carved horse. Made this for Daniel, he said. She ran her fingers over the smooth wood. You keep fixing everything around here, she teased softly. Even what isn't yours. He smiled. Maybe it's time it was. The words hung in the warm air between them. That fall, Lila stood on the porch watching Daniel toddle through the grass. Caleb came up behind her, quiet as the sunset. Hard to believe he was barely breathing that night we met, he said. He's strong, Lila answered. Stronger than me. Caleb stepped closer. You're stronger than you think. Took more grit to start over than most men ever find. Her eyes glistened. I was lost, Caleb. You gave me a place when no one else would. He shook his head. No, Lila. You brought life back to this ranch. She turned to face him, her heart pounding. You think someone like me could start again? Truly. He brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. You already have. The wind carried the scent of sage and rain as he bent and kissed her. Slow, certain, full of promise. Years later, travelers crossing the Carter Ranch still spoke of the woman who sang while she baked bread and the cowboy who never raised his voice but whose kindness filled the valley. Some said they'd been broken souls mended by grace. Others said it was just a love story like the prairie itself. Wide, quiet, and everlasting. On summer evenings, when the fields turned gold and the river shone like glass, two figures could be seen sitting on the porch, a man with lines of wisdom in his face, a woman with laughter in her eyes, and between them a child grown tall, humming the same soft tune his mother once sang to survive. And when folks passed by, they swore they heard that song in a wind, a reminder that even in a hard, wild world, love still finds the broken and makes them whole again. As the last rays of sunlight dipped beyond the Montana hills, the Carter Ranch glowed under a warm amber hue. Lila stood by the porch rail, Daniel asleep in her arms, while Caleb mended a fence nearby. The gentle rhythm of the hammer and the whisper of wind through the tall grass made everything feel right again. Quiet, healed, and whole. She looked toward him, heart swelling with a gratitude she could hardly speak. You gave us a home, she murmured softly. Caleb met her gaze, smile slow and sincere. No, Lila, he said, walking closer. You gave me back my heart. They stood together under the wide sky, the prairie stretching endless and golden. The world had once broken them both, but now, with love and second chances, it had also rebuilt them. And as the first stars flickered awake above, their laughter rose with the night breeze, simple, tender, and eternal, just like the land they called home. That night, as the crickets sang and the moonlight wrapped the ranch in silver understanding, love had come softly, unexpectedly, and it stayed. The prairie wind carried their promise, to heal, to hope, to begin again.